Hi, welcome to another edition of Counterpunch with Trevor Loudon. Please like the show, share the show, and subscribe on Epoch TV. You'll see stuff here you'll never see anywhere else. Well, today I'm going to talk about one of America's most dangerous and violent communist groups. It's the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. Now, today's Freedom Road is about 1,000 members strong. Doesn't sound like a lot in a country this size, but they are very, very active. It's based in Minneapolis and Chicago, but in recent years it has expanded into Wisconsin, Grand Rapids, Michigan, New York City, Connecticut, Ohio, North Carolina, Tennessee, so it's got a pretty good geographical spread now. Freedom Road grew out of the revolutionary movements of the 60s, the Maoist radicals of the 60s and the 70s who cut their teeth protesting the Vietnam War. It draws from former members of SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, League of Revolutionary Struggle, and other similar groups. In 1985, two of these groups, the Revolutionary Workers' Headquarters, which had been part of the Revolutionary Communist Party, and the Proletarian Unity League, which came out of SDS, combined to form Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And the Freedom Road was named after the Freedom Road the slaves traveled from the south into the north before the Civil War. And race has been a key component of Freedom Road's work. They are very much into racial agitation. In the late 1990s, Freedom Road was splitting into two factions. One faction wanted to carry on the Maoist struggle, rioting in the streets, racial agitation, labor union takeovers, really grassroots communist Maoist activism. The other side wanted to sort of be a little bit more moderate, work more in electoral politics, and infiltrate, work with, and inside the Democratic Party. In 1999, the split came to a head, and the group split into two factions, both keeping the Freedom Road name. The Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minneapolis members, the Midwestern section, split away. They were the minority, but they were the hardcore Maoist radicals. They wanted the traditional Maoist activism. And they became known as the Fight Back faction after their newspaper, Fight Back News. The other organization sort of started to work more with the Democrats, got more involved in electoral politics, really moved into the southern United States. And thankfully, eventually in 2019, in April, they changed their name to Liberation Road. So I'm going to be referring in the rest of the segment to the Freedom Road Socialist Organization Fight Back faction, now the only Freedom Road in the country. In 2006, former members of the terrorist Weather Underground organization, such as Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dawn and Mark Rudd and Jeff Jones, joined with a whole bunch of ex-SDS radicals, a couple of ex-communists, and they formed a new organization called Movement for a Democratic Society. This had been the sort of adult body of SDS back in the 60s and 70s, so they reconstituted this organization. And of course, they reconstituted SDS for the student radicals of the time, of the millennial student radicals. This was set up in 2007. Both student factions of Freedom Road, the Fight Back faction and the faction that became Liberation Road, both joined the new SDS. But eventually the Fight Back faction muscled the other faction out and took it over. Now SDS around the country, new SDS, is a Fight Back faction, Freedom Road Socialist Organization Youth Front. It's now the main recruiting organ for Freedom Road. Freedom Road has deep ties to Communist China. They have been sending cadre to Communist China since the 1970s. The same Maoists that went there back in the 70s are now going to modern Communist China. They follow the CCP line religiously on anything from foreign policy to economic policy to COVID policy. You name it, if the CCP says it, Freedom Road does it. Now, Freedom Road also has very close ties to the State Department designated terrorist group, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Once known for hijacking airplanes, it still exists in the Middle East. It's an openly communist, Marxist, Leninist, and terrorist organization. Now, for several years, Freedom Road made a big cause out of supporting Rasmea O'Day. She was based in Chicago. She had not declared her terrorist affiliations when she entered the country, and she was about to be deported. So Freedom Road mounted a big campaign to keep her in the country. It didn't matter that Rasmea O'Day had been convicted for taking part in the bombing murder in 1969 of two Israeli university students, Edward Yoffe and his best friend Leon Canner. That didn't mind. Freedom Road wanted Rasmea O'Day to stay in the country, but thankfully they were eventually unsuccessful and she was deported. Freedom Road also has ties to the pro-Putin Moscow-based group, the anti-globalization movement of Russia. They support North Korea, they support Cuba, they support Venezuela. They've sent several delegations to Venezuela, about 6 in the last 2 years, to work with President Maduro. They also have close contacts with the Venezuelan consulate in Chicago. Freedom Road has been particularly close over the last 15 years with the Fuerza Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, the FARC, the communist rebel group in Colombia that's been fighting the Colombian government for over 50 years now. Freedom Road has sent many delegations to meet with FARC leaders. They have deep connections to this organization. They're also very, very close to the Communist Party of the Philippines and the New People's Army. Several delegations of Freedom Road people have gone to the Philippines, including in very recent times, to work with these terrorist groups. And we must remember the FARC, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and the New People's Army are all designated by the US State Department as terrorist organizations. It's illegal to assist them from the United States. There are very long jail sentences for anybody caught doing that. Now, in September 2010, the FBI raided the homes of more than 20 Freedom Road members and supporters in Chicago, in Minnesota, and a couple in California as well. Now, many of these were senior Freedom Road people. There were Joe Eisbacher and his wife Stephanie Weiner, Mick Kelly, one of the top men in Freedom Road, Tom Burke, another top leader, Sarah Martin, Steph Yorick and her wife Jess Sundin. All these were top Freedom Road cadre. Now, thousands of documents were confiscated from these people's homes. They were looking for evidence that Freedom Road was supporting the FARC, was supporting Hamas, the Palestinian terrorist group, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine.
My name is Melinda Power, and I'm the attorney for Stephanie Weiner and Joe Eisbacher. And I am here along with basically, I don't know how many people are here, because we are very both shocked and outraged at the fact that people who have committed their lives to struggling to support the struggles of people in Iraq, Afghanistan, in Palestine, around the world, and the struggles of people here in this country have been in such incredibly subject to incredible intimidation and harassment by the FBI. Yesterday at 7 a.m., as they were getting ready to go to work, over 20 FBI agents bombarded them and came into their house and were there till 7 at night. You can imagine having 20 FBI agents in your house for 12 hours. They then went through every single item and ended up taking over 30 boxes of the most personal belongings belonging to Mr. Eisbacher and Ms. Weiner.
These raids caused a lot of stir at the time, and there was speculation that if convicted, some of these people would go to jail for very long terms. So Freedom Road started lobbying congressmen, it started setting up defense committees, the National Lawyers Guild got involved, and all around the country communists were supporting Freedom Road because they knew if Freedom Road people went to jail, that there was ample evidence to put many of the other communist groups in jail as well. Well, at the time, Eric Holder was Attorney General, and after a lot of fuss and a lot of demonstrations and a lot of lobbying of congressmen, nothing happened. No indictments were put forward, and everybody just walked. The whole thing went away. That may have also had something to do with the fact that some of these Freedom Road people, such as Tom Burke of Chicago, had worked very closely with the young activist Barack Obama in the Windy City. And President Barack Obama was now Eric Holder's boss. And it may not have looked good to send people to jail for committing terrorist offences when Barack Obama was under a lot of fire for his very deep relationship with former Weather Underground terrorists Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dawn, who you may remember set up Movement for a Democratic Society, which spawned New Students for a Democratic Society, which is the Freedom Road's youth wing. Now, in 2008, Freedom Road led major demonstrations against the Republican National Convention in Minneapolis, and there was a lot of violence at those demonstrations. In 2012, they organized another mass demonstration against the Republican Party convention in Tampa. I was there in the city at the time, and the demonstration fizzled a bit because there was a major hurricane warning at the time, and a lot of activists who were expected from around the country didn't turn up. But again, this was Freedom Road doing this. 2016, Freedom Road led some very big demonstrations against the Republican convention in Cleveland, Ohio. Again, I was there and saw much of what happened. The Freedom Road hated Donald Trump. It doesn't like Republicans, but it particularly hated Trump because Trump was the main enemy of their best friend, Communist China. The day that President Trump was inaugurated, the then leader of Freedom Road, Steph Yorick of Minneapolis, publicly declared at a rally in Washington that their job was to bring down President Trump. And the demonstrations that happened in Chicago and Wisconsin, etc., in the early days of the Trump presidency, you'll find Freedom Road was heavily involved in these demonstrations. Now, in November 2019, the Freedom Road set up a nationwide organization with branches all over the country called the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. It was headed by Freedom Road Central Committee member Frank Chapman, a former member of the Communist Party. The National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression was an organization of the same name from the 1970s, set up by the Communist Party USA at the time, to get Angela Davis, the iconic communist, out of jail, where she was facing charges of accessory to murder for the killing of a California judge. The National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, the new version, was set up right before election year to look for examples of police brutality against Black and Latino and Asian Americans. It was all about police racism. The idea was to protest any examples of police racism against Blacks, Latinos, or Asians in election year, and they had a nationwide federation ready to participate. The Minneapolis affiliate of NAARPR was the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar, named after a young black man who was killed by the police in that city in 2015. Now, that was headed by Freedom Road Socialist Organization leader Jess Sundin. Here's a 3-minute video clip I wrote for Secure Freedom that explains what Freedom Road did in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd by police in Minneapolis on May 25th, 2020.
Freedom Road Socialist Organization claimed credit for sparking recent riots that spread to more than 40 states. Freedom Road supports the Communist Party of China and the communist mass murderers Mao and Stalin.
This is Steph Yorick. I'm the political secretary of Freedom Road Socialist Organization. Mao and Stalin were both Marxist-Leninists. That is how I identify as a Marxist-Leninist as well.
On the day President Trump was inaugurated, Steph Yorick vowed to make this country ungovernable. Steph Yorick is married to fellow activist Jess Sundin.
Myself, I am a revolutionary. I've been a communist for more than 20 years.
Jess Sundin leads a militant anti-police group called Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar. According to Chicago Freedom Road leaders Frank Chapman and Joe Osbaker, Jess Sundin's Coalition for Justice for Jamar was the movement that launched the nationwide rebellion.
Hi folks, this is Jess from Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar. The first 2 weeks after George Floyd was killed saw an intense high level of organizing all day and all night, every day. During the day, we would have marches and rallies, and at night, the focus was often at the 3rd Precinct, which is the police station where George Floyd's killers were working out of. I can't tell you the joy it brought all of us to see the 3rd Precinct destroyed. There were marches, like I said, there were rallies, and lots of buildings were destroyed, some by fire, some by brute force. Sometimes it was golf clubs, sometimes it was baseball bats, and a lot of folks wanted to get out to other sites around the cities where there is, really pitched battles happening, and we support all of that. And I want to be absolutely clear as an organizer, those night demonstrations, the emptying of the police department, the emptying of Target and other major stores is absolutely tied to, connected to, and part of the movement.
Within hours of Minneapolis outbreaks, Freedom Road Socialist Organization supporters staged often violent protests in Chicago, Milwaukee, New York, Dallas, Houston, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Miami, Tampa, Salt Lake City, and Los Angeles. Allied pro-China communists spread protests to many other cities across the nation. When will the Communist Party of China's American supporters be brought to justice?
Is it possible that Freedom Road did what it did to America, burning cities, rioting, looting, etc., on the instructions of Communist China? Do you think Communist China might have wanted President Trump out of office in the 2020 elections? And do you think Freedom Road Socialist Organization might have been very glad to help out their friends in Communist China to achieve that goal? It's interesting that the other faction of Freedom Road, now called Liberation Road, also has deep ties to Communist China and is actually the parent body of Black Lives Matter, which also participated in the riots after the killing of George Floyd. But more on Liberation Road in a future episode. So I hope you found this interesting, folks. I hope you realize the damage that a small communist party can do, especially if it has no police scrutiny, nobody penalizes what they do, and if they have strong ties to foreign communist and terrorist organizations. So please circulate this video, pass it around as much as you can, subscribe to Epoch TV, like and share us, and keep fighting for freedom in America and around the world. So God bless America, God bless every one of you watching, and let's save this wonderful planet from the communist evil. Thank you very much.